Glances. Glances are an information graphic. This is the first of a series that we are going to discuss. The next following lessons we will be talking about graphs, maps, diagrams, and illustrations. So what are glances? Glances basically convey the big picture. They provide us information not at a stare or not at a quick read, but at a glance. So keywords and phrases should pop out and catch the reader's eye. It is effective at attracting attention from readers who are browsing for information casually. So there are 5 varieties of glances. They are bio boxes, breakouts, rankings, ratings, and tables. And we're going to go through each one of these in a little bit more detail. But to give you an overview, bio boxes stress students' accomplishments or a person's accomplishments. Breakouts stress the key points of a lengthy text. Rankings stress the relative strengths of an item in a list. Ratings stress the strengths by grading them. And then tables show just kind of data combinations. So what are glances best suited for? They are best suited for highlighting that essential information, summarizing data. They answer those questions of who, what, and why. They often are used as entry points within the text, typical size 1 to 3 inches, sometimes wider. The challenge is to simplify the information, recognizing the need for them. And the techniques that would be utilized in a glance are typography, particularly a punched bold, occasionally icons. So those are some key information on the glances. So let's start with bio boxes. So bio boxes stress the accomplishment of an individual. And so the do's for bio boxes obviously is to stress those key points that kind of paint the big picture. You don't want those minor details. And it's more of a question of why this individual, why him or why her. So we see this particularly in election years when people are running for some sort of an office. You may see a little profile, and that would be a bio box. You may see that in a local newspaper where you see kind of this portion that's been brought out just to highlight those key pieces and to kind of give you a big picture. Breakouts, the second one we're going to talk about, can be classified as a half headline, half graphic. So they highlight key accomplishments of a plan or key points of an article or key features of a product. So where bio boxes are coming from an individual, breakouts are more of an object or of a plan of something. So again, it's not a stare box, and it's sort of could be called the bio box without the bio. It's a fact box. Okay, so what we do here is we want to reduce the info to the absolute minimum. We want to highlight those key facts, and we typically do increase that visual vividness by adding some sort of background images or photos. You don't want to organize on the importance. You don't want to make it a stare. So here's an example. It looks very, very similar to a bio box, and a lot of times these pieces, these infographics are set out in a box. Actually, they're located in some sort of a container within your layout. Here's an example where you see this kind of key information pulled out, and so I can get to it very easily and quickly. Here's an example kind of pushing that breakout a little bit, but you can kind of see there's some key pieces they're talking about part artist, part scientist, and then they're pulling out those key pieces of that individual. And it's not specifically one person. It's not a biography. It's more of just information about this type of a person. So it's more of a objective view. Rankings. So rankings stress the relative strengths of a list of members. And so you do want to show why or explain why the list is important by highlighting, the position. You want to include visuals and data metaphors. You want to make sure that the graphics work with the other elements, and typically you do include some sort of background images. You don't want to just simply display a list. because that's not going to, bring in the people that like that visual vividness. The only time you would just simply display it as a list is if you really are trying to bring in the info seekers. So here's an example. We see this in the sporting world quite often. Ratings are the next. So evaluate items by grading them, either with a sort of letter grade, or you could use stars, as you might see in entertainment review or in a hotel review. So these are primarily for those info seekers. They are the most categorical of graphics. So you do want to know what rating scale is being used. You may need to add some a key to help explain, a little box that tells us how much things are worth or what percentage things are. And you want to organize this time on the importance. So you want to organize the info on importance. Use simple icons to function as pictograms for ratings. I have some examples here. You don't want to use undue vividness. So that means don't go crazy with the chart junk. And you assume that the readers will read the accompanying text, that they will go on to get more information about this. So here's a rating on holiday films, and you can see they're using a little Christmas bulb as their scale. The next is tables, and tables is probably the most used and abused type of graphic. And we see a lot of numbers, we present large amounts of data, and that's a valuable asset. However, it's less memorable, it's less quickly understood, it's less meaningful. So a good alternative to a table is a graph. It's only valuable with limited data. It's usually better in a column format. You want to really try to eliminate that non-essential information. And you're going to use tables only when supporting details are important. Okay? Again, you don't want to use tables as a substitute for graphs. Graphs sort of trump tables. And you want to make sure that you don't let tables become just these decorative lists. They always need to have some sort of a main point. So here's an example of wind chill at dangerous level. And you can see a lot of information presented in here. There's a lot of data, but they do have a little bit of that visual vividness here to draw people in. The less a reader is expected to be personally affected by a topic, the more visual the graphic should be. You want to be careful that you don't increase the visual volume to create an exit point. Graphics get their power from eye-catching vividness and that data metaphor. So that data metaphor is a super important thing to think about when you're creating your graphics. The question is, does larger type attract attention, or does smaller type attract attention? And really the difference is what attracts. So either one can be valuable. And again, you kind of have to use your design sense for that. Graphics should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when you look at this list, it looks just like that inverted triangle or the inverted pyramid that we talked about earlier. A failed graphic has nothing more than what can be gained at a glance. Okay, so there has to be some depth and there has to be more to it. Here's one last example to leave you with. This was an infographic that was produced by State Farm Insurance. And I wanted to point out all of the different things going on here. Some of these things we have not talked about yet as far as what types of elements are included here. But if we look at this bottom left corner, you can see a list here. This could be a morphed breakout because you're telling me in a list format though, but you're telling me some information specific here. So these are kind of fun if you start looking at infographics and evaluating them, breaking them apart. A lot of components here that we'll discuss throughout this semester.